What about college and universities in the United States? Because one of the reasons why millennials and centennials reject so much capitalism is because they relate it to huge debt in the universities, and universities costing $100,000, $200,000, and then they get in debt, and they blame capitalism for that. Could you explain what's going on with university education in the United States in that sense?
Sure. From my point of view, it is absurd that the cost of universities have grown enormously over the last 15, 20 years. I think probably twice the rate of inflation, if not more. And students are accumulating more debt to go to college. But I would blame the lion's share of that on the fact that government provides student loans. So basically anybody who wants to go to college can apply and get student loans. That means they have more money available to pay to colleges. Colleges can raise their prices knowing that students, however much colleges raise their prices, they know students will be able to borrow as much as they need from the government to pay for that. So it just becomes a spiral upwards. Now, if that weren't the case, so if you couldn't just easily borrow as much money as you needed for college, people would start to think more carefully, like, well, is it really worth it to pay $50,000 for this degree? Do I have any hope of actually making enough money in my lifetime to pay back the debt from doing this degree versus, going to some other college where it's less? Or, part of the problem is that we don't even have alternatives anymore because all the colleges have participated in this of raising their prices because they know they can.
Which is what happens when the government gives you privileges. Everyone wants to loot in from that privilege and get their share.
Yeah.
And it has happened with airlines in the United States, with banks, with universities, with the agricultural sector. And then you have the lobbies. In a true free market, I don't see the need for lobbies because lobbies only act as pushers into bringing more privileges or more subsidies or protectionisms or regulations for their sector.
Right.
But all of this, airlines, universities, banks, the financial crisis of 2008, lobbies, most people relate this to free market and capitalism failing.
Right.
They don't relate it to, wait a minute, it was the government in the first place that got us into this mess.
Right.
So how come more government is going to be the solution?
Right.
But then you see people like, Bernie Sanders or Ocasio-Cortez, with this Green New Deal or making socialism a trending topic. But at the same time, on the other hand, you have Trump also using lobbies and protectionism and closing the economy. And people think, no, Trump is free market capitalism. These guys are proposing socialism. I don't know where in a country like the US, where there's freedom of press or freedom of expression, where to start on breaking this.
Right, that's a good question. In terms of strategy for spreading the ideas, that's something I've thought a lot about over the years, and I'm not really sure myself what the answer is. How do we break through? Who do we try to reach? What do we try to reach them with? In terms of blaming capitalism and then arguing for more government controls, I think part of it is people tend to focus on what's in front of them.
Yeah.
So Henry Hazlitt had his book, Economics in One Lesson, and the main lesson is don't just focus on the short term, focus on, and what's in front of you, focus on the long-term results and the distant results. And so then he goes through all these economic issues showing, if you just focus on the short-term results, you're going to think, oh, it's capitalism's fault and government can fix it. But if you trace the causality through the long term, then you see, oh, no, actually, it's these economic forces working out. That's what causes the problems, and it's because the government intervened in the first place. So that's one thing that people need to learn is that don't just look at these issues on a very short-term, narrowed focus basis.
No, and also understanding, because even by talking with all the scholars of ARI, when I asked them, how do you arrive to objectivism? Some was because they were questioning religion, others through economic reasons like you, others because they were looking for a philosophical purpose. So there's like a specialization of interest, the subjective or objective value of why you would pursue these ideas. So maybe we need also specialized strategies, right? What will appeal to some audience won't appeal to others. But I think that one of the most important things that we can rescue for what you're saying is let's focus on what worries people, right? If some people are worried about the environment, then okay, alternatives for that, or the economy, or paying a student loan, and trying to explain from that perspective. Robbie, has been a pleasure having this interview with you, and thank you for writing Foundations for a Free Society. Personally, it helped me a lot because I also feel like I have one foot in each movement.
Okay.
And I do believe that we have a lot of common ground that we can work on to bring more people in. So thank you very much.
Thank you.